In this episode of Eviction Wars, a lot of bullshit. People trying to kick Derek out. Eviction, lies, corruption.
This is incredibly rude. This has been going on for months. I am fucking sick and tired of this. I want my fucking money back. As far as serving a package, I had to photocopy a whole bunch of stuff that cost me $38 last time.
If they're all the same, if they're all the same issues listed on there, then it all should really be the same evidence.
Have you ever heard of something like this? Like somebody basically giving the same eviction again within the time of the first one? Like, does that even how is that even legal?
It sometimes happens. There's a number of reasons that it could happen. They may have maybe filled out the first one incorrectly.
No, that didn't happen. It's nothing to do with that.
I don't know. Just saying that as a whole, yes, it does happen.
Could they actually use that second eviction, their third one I mean, to just come and kick me out if I didn't appeal it?
Potentially, yep.
My confusion comes from, like, it seems like people get frustrated, they can just throw the same eviction at you over and over again. Like, let's go hypothetically down the road, and that's what happens. Like, let's say...
They hypothetically may serve the same eviction notice over and over and over again. Now, at some point, a party may determine that it is, breach of Section 28 of the Tenancy Act, the tenant's right to quiet enjoyment, if they felt that it was harassing or whatever the case may be, or if an arbitrator made a decision and dismissed it and they continued to give the same eviction notice over and over and over again.
Yeah, but that should be harassment.
Leave me alone! It potentially could be construed that, and a tenant or a party could potentially apply for compensation for loss of quiet enjoyment under Section 28. So there are avenues there, but I mean, there's a number of factors that come into play there, and that's where the arbitrator comes into play for making determinations. And you don't have to give that to the landlord, but you would have that statement, that it has their name on it, their signature, their date, and then you include that with your copy of the amendment and you submit it to us.
Oh, wait, how do I get that to you guys, say, in Maple Ridge if I live in Mission? Because I've already had to go there twice for the first eviction.
I could give you the email address.
Oh, okay.
You could attach the documents and email it to us.
I don't want to drive because every time they do this, they're wasting my gas money, they're wasting all kinds of money and time, and I want to avoid that.
So yeah, just what I was saying is, I found them. I see the email with your amendment here, so they are received by us. It was sent to the incorrect email again because this is not something we normally do. There's a specific email that you would call and we would give you. I don't know what that conversation was, who you spoke with, but regardless of that, it's kind of a side note. I did find them. I did put it in the category to be processed, so you should receive an email, I would guess today, with confirmation of that receipt. Confirmation
Perfect.
that's been added to your file.
So I'm a bit lucky there, I guess. Because
Exactly. I mean, normally you have to drop it off at the office, but again, the email option is still technically open, so I have no problem accepting these, and it will be processed.
Yeah, I guess because, COVID kind of, you gotta...
For sure.
Yeah, okay. Now, a couple other questions. So, is this going to take more than 10 days to get processed, or... Like, if I get an email back today, does that mean it's processed now, or what does that mean?
Yeah, so the back end, like how long it takes us to actually physically manipulate and change the file based on what you have put in, very well may not get finalized today. However, that's not really important for you. It's considered received when you get that confirmation email. So as soon as we actually put it into the system, more so what I'm getting at is when you sent the email, when it was received by us, is when it's considered received.
Okay, now there's a couple other questions, because this is a very complex or sophisticated situation that I'm not quite familiar with. If this eviction notice says it was signed and dated on September 22nd, but nobody said anything about this, but I was told by somebody that it doesn't count as served until I actually pick it up, which was Thursday, the 21st of October. I'm not sure why they would wait that long to even tell me about it until I pick it up. I don't quite understand that. But if I picked it up on October 21st, and it says not only 10 days to appeal this, but October 31st, I have to be out of my house, doesn't it, if it's a 1 month notice, doesn't that mean if I picked it up on October 21st that I actually have till somewhere in November to be out of the house, or the end of November?
Yeah, the short answer here is up to arbitrator, but let me give you the long answer, okay? So Yes, that information is correct. When it's considered received in your hands is when it's considered received. Like when you have it in your hands, it's considered received.
Totally.
However, there are some important things to keep in mind as well too. There's deemed received provisions, right? So you may or may not already know this, but putting something in someone's hands, like handing it to them directly, considered received right then and there, obviously.
Yeah.
But then you can also put something on the door. It's considered received 3 days later.
Okay, yeah, I know that. I heard about that.
If you're sending something by registered mail, it can be considered received 5 days later. So the reason I'm giving you that background information is because, let's say, for example, the landlord did send it by registered mail. We'll just use a generic example, not related to yours. They send you something by registered mail, right? And you get the slip from Canada Post, you weren't home, they put it on your door, you have to go pick something up at the post office. Obviously, they don't say what it is. And let's just say you didn't go pick it up, right? You took 3 weeks to go pick it up, and you eventually went there, and oh, lo and behold, it's an eviction notice.
Yeah.
Right? Well, in that type of an example, the arbitrator then may not say it's considered received when you went to pick it up. The legislation says it was received by you on the 5th day, and whether or not you went to pick it up, the legislation doesn't really care. It's considered received 5 days later.
Okay.
The reason there's these deemed received provisions is so that people, individuals, can't avoid documents.
Okay.
Right? If you make the choice not to pick something up or take it off your door or something along those lines,
Yeah.
then the legislation doesn't care. It says you get it X amount of days later, depending on the way it's served.
Yeah.
So that's all I would say here. Right now, if the landlord has given you this notice, they put a specific eviction day on that notice, and you truly didn't get it till October, well then yes, it's a possibility that it's not considered received until then, and the move-out days, the next following month, right?
I guess that's their own fault.
There's also the possibility that the landlord could produce evidence that they did serve it appropriately and on time based on what the act says, and then it could be considered received and the move-out date based on what they have in the notice.
Well, in this case, there's...
It'll be up to the arbitrator.
Well, in this case, there's no chance of that because, like I said, there was no, like, I've been dealing with the property management team constantly to try and get this money back. The only thing I knew was when I came there, they said the property manager, Victoria, wanted to talk to me about something. It's like something else. Obviously, these eviction notice. But so that was going to be like this first time ever. She wasn't even there when I went there and hasn't called since. But there was an envelope with the eviction notice in, and that's where we are now. So that is the first time I've ever heard anything about this third eviction notice.
Let me put it this way, okay? So, I mean, this is all very important information, but not a lot that I can do with, right? You're going to have to explain this to the arbitrator, and certainly it could affect how this all goes out.
Of course.
Right? But can a landlord serve multiple eviction notices? Absolutely. Right? Even if they had a hearing where a notice was dismissed? Absolutely. Right? I mean, a really simple example of that would be, let's say a tenant was served an eviction notice for playing music at 3 a.m. for an entire week.
Okay.
Right? And that didn't actually happen, right? And the notice was dismissed because there was no proof that that actually happened.
Yeah.
Right? And let's say factually, a month later, that does happen, and the landlord serves the eviction notice seemingly for the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Right? Well, on paper, if that validly did happen, certainly they can serve that notice, right? But in this situation, if they have served the notice and again, it's deemed that it's not valid, that's what they're saying, and it's not true, that it wasn't served appropriately, the reasons weren't true, etc., all of the nuance you brought forward, then it can subsequently be dismissed. Right? And if you find yourself in a situation where a landlord is constantly serving the same notice for the same reason over and over as a form of harassment,
Yeah.
well then that's something that could go to compliance and enforcement, which is an investigative unit that investigates repeat offenders who are constantly in abuse of the act, and they have the authority to levy daily penalties of up to $5,000 a day. Right? So if this does continue going forward, feel free to take that avenue.
I will definitely do that. It's just something that's turned into... It's like one of those deals where you got two kids in a elementary school and some counselor has to move in and it's gotten way out of hand over such a silly matter. And I'm trying to do everything properly about this. Like in terms of smoking, another thing too, just background stuff, I only smoke actually just recreationally. I only smoke a few cigarettes when I drink, and I only drink like on weekends. And I haven't even drank in 2 weeks. I don't like I used to drink a lot more. So if you go back through the 8.5 years, smoking has done nothing but decrease gradually, fluctuating over time here. So if anything, their health has gotten better and better. But they don't realize stuff like that. All they realize is the guy got mad over some issue involving a hose being used, and it was really stupid. Basically fraudulent, you know, the whole setup was bad. Inspection, a right to have an inspection here on October 29th. And I don't mind, right? There's no grow operation or anything illegal in here. But what I do have a problem with, this seems so obviously in sync with their attempted eviction notices that are already desperate enough that it looks like they're looking for any excuse to evict us. And I just have a problem with people sticking their nose in here, invading my privacy. And I'm wondering if there's a way I can avoid the inspection or deny the right to have it inspected.
The law allows a landlord to do a monthly inspection once per month if they want. If they're going to do an inspection, they have to serve a 24-hour written notice that says the date, the time, the purpose of entry, and it has to be served in accordance to the Act. So delivery on the door or by registered mail, or if you guys have an established email communication in writing,
yeah,
they can email the notice to you.
I've already got it.
If they do that, then they can enter the property.
Do they have to actually have the time of day on there? Did they plan to go like 11 o'clock p.m.?
The date, the time, the purpose of entry.
So if they don't have the time of day, like 11 p.m. or 11 a.m. or something like that, does that make it illegal?
Possibly. It can render the notice invalid. If they don't serve it properly, then that can give you the ability to deny access.
Next week on Eviction Wars. Victoria phones the police on Derek for apparently harassing her and video recording her. Of course, none of this is true, as Derek's never even met Victoria.
Please! Please, whatever I did, I'm sorry! Just go! I'm sorry.